Alright, so this is sort of an overview of both photosynthesis and cellular respiration on a slightly larger scale. So here I have a picture of a sun, a tree, and a person, and the two chemical equations that we'll be dealing with right below it. So the first thing I talk about when I go over this particular picture is, first of all, what are some things that the human here needs to survive. So we'll start out with those processes. First, they need something to eat. So one thing plants do, this tree, we'll say it's an apple tree of some sort, it's actually going to supply the sugar or glucose for the human to get its energy from. Another thing that humans need comes from the air. So we require O2 so that we can breathe and continue to make energy. Then I typically ask, what does this tree need? The tree actually needs carbon dioxide from the air. And it needs sunlight to excite the electrons, and it also needs water. So H2O. The tree needs water in order to grow. Typically, it also needs nutrients from the soil as well, but we'll talk about that a little later. The next thing I do is I ask, what is coming out of each of these. So the human is actually breathing out carbon dioxide. And when they eat, we also give off a little bit of water. So we get water from eating. It's just not as much as we do from when we directly drink it. So you're not going to stay hydrated just purely on the food that you intake, but you do get some hydration from it. And then trees are actually what produce this sugar. So you notice I kind of have a line already going from the tree to the person. But the sugar that the trees produce that we eat, the apple, would go into the person. So that's something that the tree produces, an arrow coming out of the tree. And another thing the tree does is it gives off oxygen into the air. So the reason I split it apart like this is so you can see all the stuff that's going into the energy reactions. So you have, for the tree, the arrows going in are sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. For the human, the arrows going in are oxygen and sugar, glucose. Coming out of the human is CO2 and H2O. Coming out of the tree is oxygen and sugar. So you can see how these are all interrelated with each other and how one produces what is necessary for the other to happen. So the two chemical equations for photosynthesis and cellular respiration are just opposites of each other. So I started here with this first equation where you have sugar and oxygen being put into the equation. So if you look at this, that would be the human here, sugar and oxygen. And humans perform cellular respiration. And then what comes out is that CO2 and H2O. And then the next equation below it has carbon dioxide and water going in. So you have your carbon dioxide going in and your water going in, sugar coming out, oxygen coming out. And so this tree is undergoing a process for this of photosynthesis. Now, one thing I do want to clear up before we get started is that plants have mitochondria and chloroplasts. So they will also use cellular respiration, just to make sure that that is not misunderstanding, but they are producing photosynthesis as well.